Hey, everybody. It's Bob Ost, and this is Theater Resources Unlimited. It's our Friday community gathering. It's October 21st, and I forgot to count before I went on the air. I think it's our 127th or 28th consecutive conversation since April 17th, 2020. So here we are. Those of you who don't know True, those of you who are in YouTube land or out in podcast land, we're a producers organization. Basically, I'm a writer who 29 years ago discovered that producing was difficult and thought, well, maybe I could help producers by creating an environment where they could meet each other and find ways to work together and learn from each other. It was kind of a crazy thing for a writer to do, but me plus two other writers, Cheryl Davis and Gary Hughes, we got together and we started inviting people to my living room at the time. And 29 years later, here we are. We're specifically designed to nurture and encourage producers. But in doing this for 29 years, we've also discovered that there's a whole community out there called self-producing artists. I like to refer to them as SPA, self-producing artists. Self-producing is very, very relaxing. So we do this now, and we teach everybody in theater to be mindful, be conscious of the business side of the arts. I help writers get over the hump of fearing that they're going to compromise their talents by understanding the business. If I meet one more writer who says, "But I'm just a writer, I don't know anything about business," I will scream. It behooves all of us to know about the business. We are better prepared to navigate this business if we understand it. So that's basically who we are. For those of you out there who just wonder what a True is, that's what we are. And we started off our conversations April 17th, 2020, because of COVID and because people were feeling isolated. And I was told there's something called Zoom. Zoom, what is Zoom? What is virtual? I don't want to know about virtual. Don't tell me about that. But, we all, I think, learned to be flexible. I think we all got through a very difficult period that started March 15th when shutdown was declared. And I know some of us got through it more gracefully than others, but even the ones who are cursing COVID and cursing going through shutdown and cursing masks, I think you've developed some adaptive skills from COVID, and I think we're better people for it. It also gave us 2.5. Well, it's not 2.5 years because we're out of shutdown right now, but it gave us like 1.5 to 2 years of actually being forced to think about things, being forced to actually be alone with our thoughts and actually be aware of what was happening in our country and in our culture. I won't be specific about it, but I think everybody knows what some of the specifics are. So one of the things I learned was that by having a virtual Zoom room like this, I could actually reach out to people beyond New York City. So in the room today, we have people from the UK, East Coast, West Coast, South, North. Sometimes we have Australia. Last week I had 2 people from Australia. Bless their hearts, they get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to be with us. Our conversations originally were about creating in the shutdown. Things are evolved now. We're back to live theater. Last summer, I had a community gathering conversation with Jonathan Hogue, who was self-producing a show called Stranger Sings. And it was like, as I recall, I think this is accurate. You can correct me if I'm not exactly right, but I think it was the first musical to open live post-COVID in the city. And it was successful. And he was talking a lot about being a self-producer. He was part of a class that we give called the Producer Development and Mentorship class. And he felt that class prepared him to actually self-produce his show and make a lot of decisions, along with his partner, Nick Flatto, who you're going to meet, that would help him actually get the show up on its feet and in front of an audience. Well, here we are a year later, and I know that Stranger Things is opening off Broadway. I mean, it's opened off Broadway, but I didn't know that friends of mine were producing it. And when I found out that Sue Gilad and Larry Rogowsky were the producers that had brought this to New York again, I just said, I got to do this. I got to have you guys back. I have to have you in the room. Jonathan is probably going to join us later, but in the meantime, I'd like you to meet Nick, Sue, and Larry. So here we are. Hi, guys. Welcome to True. Welcome to the community gathering.
Thanks, Bob. We feel very welcomed.
I am so excited about the fact that you guys are doing this show. I'm ecstatic. I'm out of my mind with happiness about this. This is wonderful. Nick, I'm going to start with you though, because you've been involved with it a little longer than Sue. Nick is the director of the show. Nick, tell us a little bit about how you met Jonathan and how you came on board with Stranger Things.
Yeah, I'm a fellow spa. I am a self-producing artist that, wanted to find more opportunity to direct and be a part of original new works. And I met Jonathan about 4 years ago. I was a performer. My last performance gig was up at Cape Playhouse, and one of the fellow actors, cast members, heard I was assistant directing, interested in directing, and and he was on Stranger Things, and they heard they were looking for a director. So I got to meet Jonathan 4 years ago. We had a meeting for about 3 hours. He sent me their 54 Below show, was the kind of first realized incarnation of this material, started in an apartment. They did a cabaret show at 54 Below, sold out. He sent me that recording and said, hey, we're looking for a director. We're ready to bring on a director at this point.
And I want to put an underscore under that, because I actually, you're even smarter than me about this, because the first thing that everybody in this room and a lot of people watching would want to know is how do you get started? And the fact that you started in a cabaret is really an important piece for people to understand. So tell us more about that and tell us how that worked.
Yeah, so they started this show, in an apartment. It was a group of friends that just loved Stranger Things and created this parody musical. Very, it was all Jonathan, but collaborative of, hey, let's try this, let's try that. He hired an orchestrator and arranger, Michael Case, to kind of fully realize his melodies, because he doesn't write music. And 54 Below was their first kind of attempt to see it with an audience. They had music stands set up. It was that cabaret format, but just to see audience response. And I don't think they quite understood what they had on their hands and how audiences would respond to this material. And I came on again, I saw this video, and within the opening number, the first 3 to 6 minutes, I said, wow, this deserves more life, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make that a possibility. So 4 years later, I just love this call, because you see that kind of trajectory and growth, which you feel like you're taking steps at a time and hitting those singles. I'm going to sports, even though I don't have a bone of sports in me either. But you hit a single, and then finally that home run can happen. But we don't realize it day to day, how much work we're doing and what doors we're knocking on. So it's really exciting to reflect now.
We had Michael Skoros and Brenda Bell on 2 weeks ago, and for some reason or other, Stranger Things came up in the conversation. So you want to talk about how that happens, because that's the next step that I know. Yes. I'd forgotten about the cabaret start is brilliant. I mean, it's such a good idea for so many shows to get. I mean, that's how Nonsense started, by the way. Those of you who remember Nonsense, the three of you in the room who remember Nonsense, one of the most successful off-Broadway shows ever. And the man who wrote it is worth millions of dollars now. He's also a friend of mine, but he's worth millions of dollars. And he talks to me anyway. Nick, continue the journey of Stranger Things.
Yeah, I love what you're capitalizing on, which is finding those venues that give new shows a chance, and give new shows a chance with not a lot of money. Where 54 Below, you're not paying for that venue. They get a cut of their ticket sales and food sales and all of these. But if you can find a good time to get your show up there, they were just such a great vehicle for us to get started. From that first 54 Below show, we sold out. We then had a second 54 Below show. where I was then hired as director. And that every step of the way since I've joined the team has been, let's find investors and producers to carry this along. I was a bartender at Joe Allen for 4 years. So even bartending at Joe Allen, you can find those connections and opportunities to kind of help your show along. But so we did the second 54 Below show. We hired general managers and did an industry reading at Alvin Ailey. That was kind of in between 54 Below and Players Theater. So Brenda and Michael, I know Frankenstein is playing there now. I forget who wrote that is on the call.
Eric Sirota.
Yes. You know, the players.
Sorry, that's not mine. Just so that's.
Oh no!
Oh, it's a different Frankenstein.
No. That's Michael's and Brenda's own show.
Of course, I heard the title and I said, I thought it was yours. Okay. But yeah, so Brenda and Michael, you know, are a dynamic duo that kind of self-produce a lot of their own works, but they have this beautiful space downtown that Michael owns. And there was a 5-week residency. I forget what they call it. I think it's called a self-producing residency. You know, the idea of, hey, you have the space, you don't have to pay us rent. You can have you know, they'll take a cut of box office, but you don't necessarily pay rent like you would commercially. And they, again, are nurturing these new works. And that was our dreams coming true a year ago. You know, we were the first show back post-pandemic. And this is the first time we hired a set designer, lighting, costumes, you know, saw this full show that we always felt that the script deserved. And our dreams came true. You know, Jonathan and I said last year, if this is the end of the line, we are content. I'm in the real estate world as well. We, you know, balance our lives, and I work at Corcoran Group, and that kind of business brain of how do we get this done? You know, that self-producing brain. Bob, you're talking about knowing the business. You know, we're creative, but you have to know the business. And with that, how do we make miracles happen? We have to be a little crazy. And four of us managing members, all friends, said, okay, what is our budget to make this happen at the Players? The Players happened because a 19-year-old child, I will call him, came to see our 54 Below show and came 2 or 3 times, ended up being with a family valued at $150 million. They own 3 sports teams. And that was our development fund for Players Theater. And every
So the advice to everybody in the room is meet a millionaire.
Meet a millionaire. No,
okay.
my advice is put your work out there in any capacity. I know we're all fighting to do that, but the more public you can get your works out there to meet the 19-year-olds of the world that love theater, to make dreams happen, that's your goal. But so yeah, Players Theater was 5 weeks. We had a sold out run there. Sue and Larry came to our opening night. We played ping pong that first night together.
So I want to move to Sue and Larry.
Yeah,
one or both of you. Let us know about how you first learned about the Stranger Things.
Yeah, it was. Go, Lawrence. You want to?
No, I just want to give a correction. Just a correction. I was not there on opening night. If you remember, Sue went. And I couldn't go. I was out of town. And Sue said, it was really good. You should go see it. And I just remember Nick being very, very charming, not pushy, but aggressive in a great way, that I thought, well, I should go see it. And then, of course, in Sue's recommendation. So that's when I went to see it, and I just laughed my butt off. Take it away, Sue.
Yes, Sue, how did you come to see it?
Because Nick was incredible about reaching out to me, becoming friendly with me, showing up in the places that he somehow knew that I would be, and being charming. So
he stalked you. Just say it. He stalked you.
Total
in
stalker.
the most spectacular way. And I think the breakthrough. Do you remember this, Nick? We were at the Silent Disco, a fundraiser, and like, look, anybody who's going to dance with me at a silent disco, we're going to be friends. So, but Nick was so wonderfully normal. I mean, passionate, an artist, but you know, a human being. And then in the meantime, Jonathan and I had met at the speed dating event that you threw, Bob, in April of 2021. And I asked him, I was so impressed with him. I asked him if I could read his play at the time, which was not Stranger Things, it was The Nations. And I read the play, and the play was good. It was not for me, but it was good. And it meant a lot when Nick was like, you should see Stranger Things. The writer is Jonathan Hogue. And I thought, where do I know that name from? So I watched the first 20 minutes of episode 1 of season 1 of Stranger Things on the subway on the way to opening night. So I am lucky now. I'm in this uniquely privileged space that I know what Stranger Things looks like to someone who does not know the series. And I was so entertained and entranced. There are a million musical theater references in there. So I was just, I was just clocking them all. And then that night I went home, I started to watch the TV series. Then I came and saw the show again at Players Theater. I was really blown away, not just by the quality of the show, because when you hear a parody musical, you lower your expectations. But no, this is excellent standalone on its own. But I was also really impressed that Nick and Jonathan were there, manning the merch table, welcoming everyone, having a great big smile on their face, running the thing. It actually reminded me of the way that Larry and I had run the other Josh Cohen years ago, that we were at every performance trying to find who are the next cheerleaders who are going to champion the show.
So Sue and Larry, tell me a little bit more in detail, because we're a business-minded theater company that tries to train artists to understand the business. Tell us what the series of conversations were like between you and Nick and Jonathan, and how you eventually decided that you were going to come on board.
Take it, Lawrence. It's all you.
Well, originally, listen. So we were very impressed with the show downtown at the Players. And we thought, this is great. They should license this thing. They should maybe tour this thing, get it out of New York, go. They really wanted to have a production in New York. And Sue really, we both did, but Sue mostly really kept up with them and kind of mentored and guided them. But we both told them, we're like, guys, I don't think you should do this in New York, but they really wanted to do it in Midtown. We know the reality of doing, especially an off-Broadway show in Midtown Manhattan. First of all, just the theater cost alone is crazy. But then season 4 of Stranger Things happened, and there was this really interesting moment of, holy smokes, billions of views of Stranger Things, and it just became in the zeitgeist. It was like everywhere. I mean, you guys can see it now. Everywhere you go, you're going to run into people wearing a Stranger Things shirt, now wearing a Stranger Things shirt too. So that was a real turning point, where Sue and I were sort of like, there might really be something here. Still, Sue and I, our minds are always on, what's the long tail? What does this look like in licensing? What does this look like for touring, different markets? But it was at that point we thought, yeah, okay, another production in Manhattan. And I think also the production that Jonathan and Nick really wanted to have, like a true, like the one at Players was impressive, but it was done on, how much was the budget, Nick?
It was 1/10 of our current budget.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we were able to help them realize the production they really wanted, which is what you see now, which is it's theater in the round at Playhouse 46. And it's really exciting. It's an exciting, Sue said before, you hear parody and you think, oh, I don't know. It goes beyond parody, the show. It stands on its own. If people who come to the show who have never seen Stranger Things, they thoroughly enjoy it, and then they want to watch Stranger Things. So they're like, oh, I want to start to get all those jokes that I missed, even though I loved it. So actually, Netflix owes us some money, if you ask me.
I want to be
very grateful to us.
I want to jump in for a second and clarify, let everybody know about Theater 46. You've heard of it. Some of you who come to the community gatherings. That's where Islander was done, and we had a whole. Apparently, my community gathering is dedicated to showcasing shows that have been at Theater 46, for whatever reason. But this theater was configured very different for Islander. Now, Theater 46, for those of you who don't know, used to be the theater at St. Luke's, the theater at St. Luke's, and it was configured as basically a proscenium with a stage, and it was a raked theater that wasn't particularly well rigged. Let it be said, but it was an interesting theater. The theater has now been completely revamped and it's changed, and basically it's a flexible space that you can come in and you can configure it in multiple ways. And you chose to do theater in the round, right, you guys? So that was what, when you saw this space, did you say, oh, I would do it, I definitely want to do a theater in the round, or did you already know that you wanted to do it theater in the round before you found the space?
This theater space I like my numbers business. They spent $200,000 to renovate this space, and their new brand is in the round. Their goal is to be the kind of pre-theater to Circle in the Square is their like real dream. But they actually want to be in the round. It's kind of hard to adjust that in the space. It's just the best way to have, the most number of seats in there. And the ceilings, they put a ceiling on top of it. So it's very low, and there's no like fly space to actually, potentially create a proscenium playing space again. So I think
that was always the problem with it as a proscenium space, because the stage was elevated.
There is no fly space. Yeah.
The elevated maybe 3 feet. I don't think it was much more than that, but it was an elevated stage, and the ceiling already was not that high. So there was never fly space at this particular theater. I thought because they did theater in the round and brought the playing area down to the ground level, that you might have a little bit more room to play. So you're saying that still doesn't have enough fly space.
Well, and it's also again, the theater owner wanting to maintain this kind of in the round branding, which Jonathan and I saw Islander, and we saw how immediate and intimate that show was, and the spacing and lighting in that space. And Jonathan said, this is our home. This is our home. And I said, yeah. Okay, Jonathan, there's probably a wait list of 10 shows. We're coming out of the pandemic. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And we were just so lucky. We were kind of competing with multiple shows to get this space. And she decided to go with us. And we're just so grateful for that.
So you negotiated the space. Was that before Sue and Larry came on?
Was it before? I'm forgetting.
Yeah. I mean, Nick, you were so thoughtful. Larry and I basically did nothing, and you just made
our job easy.
See, one of my trick questions when it was going to be to you and Jonathan, I was going to wait till Jonathan was here, was so how did it feel going from the dynamic of being self-producers to actually having producers on board? And I was going to ask you guys, Sue and Larry, so did it make you nuts that you had a writing team that already had produced this, or did they let you do your job?
You can be honest here. You can be honest.
It was awesome. We were sort of used to it. I mean, we came from this, at least the last show we produced off-Broadway was the other Josh Cohen, and our writers were also our stars. So we have, without even noticing, we have become accustomed to the creative team that we work with wearing multiple hats. And we don't ever have to call the director and writer to check in with them about how they feel about something, because we just had a call with the producers and the producers told us. So it's a real shortcut. It's much more efficient. In fact, if all of you can be writers, directors, and producers together, you're going to make commercial producers' lives a lot easier. Nick and Jonathan.
This is a quote. This is something we need to quote.
Oh yeah, Nick and Jonathan they're just as present as they were at Players. They take ownership in every element of the show, which really frees up me and Larry to only worry about the things that producers traditionally worry about, which is, are we filling every seat? Are we maximizing press? Are we getting the people who care about the show to post about the show? The things that are producerial in nature. But on the creative side, I'll let Nick talk to what we're coming out with creatively in terms of additional content, social content, what Jonathan's creating and how Nick is shaping it and directing it. It continues the narrative of the show. So we have a bunch of super fans who, they've been there 2, 3, 10 times. They're dressed as 11, or
I just want you to know that the second you said Jonathan's name, he came into the room.
Hey, all right.
Literally, the second you said Jonathan, there he was.
Yeah. Well, so Jonathan has
been come back, Jonathan.
Wonderful scripts for social media for us. So it's such a gift. The guy who wrote the show is also really amplifying our audience. We're lucky in that respect.
So Jonathan, that's lucky because I have 25 things that I want to add to the show and I'm not allowed to. So it rolls over into social media. So
Jonathan, since you had to join us late, and I knew that, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody? We've already talked about you coming and being part of our conversation last year, and we talked about when you opened the first musical after the pandemic, and Nick has given us a great background on starting it at 54 Below and the readings and how you got to the Players Theater, and we've gotten to the point of you're about to bring on Sue, and we haven't quite gotten there, but you're about to bring on Sue and Larry. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Just say hi to everyone.
Yeah. Hey everyone. I'm Jonathan. I am I'm a fun multi-hyphenate, writer of Stranger Things, also getting my master's in theater management, producing at Columbia, which is why I am coming on late, just finishing class. Yeah, sorry, was that an ask for an intro or ask for a question?
I didn't have the questions. We were in the middle of the questions. I wanted you to introduce yourself to the room.
Great.
This is the Jonathan Hogue that everybody's been talking about up till now. So welcome aboard, Jonathan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I think the question that I have on the table right now was, how did the dynamic change for you when you went from being a self-producer to actually having producers on board? And be honest, a lot of people self-produce because they have to. I think to an extent you guys liked producing. It doesn't sound like you have an aversion to producing. So talk about that a little bit, and tell us how things changed for you, and was your plan always to bring on a producer? Actually, Nick indicated that when you had the production at the Players Theater, you felt fulfilled. He said, this is it. So this is like an addendum here.
It's an addendum, but it also feels like it's kind of, this is the fulfillment, because I think from the beginning, we really did want this dream production in Midtown, with big producers and a bigger budget and able to run 8 shows a week when tourists are in town. And part of being a producer is kind of having to level your expectations and meet it with the thing that you're working on. And truly, last summer, if that was the only production, it would have been everything we wanted, because we got to see the show live and audiences got to see it, and it was hilarious and it went well. And so, and it's true. I think Nick can probably agree to this, but I really enjoy producing. I think it was something that I kind of stumbled into as I was working on this. And to be honest, half of why I like producing is it allows me to stay with the show after opening night, because there's the writer part of me that's sad once it's opening, and I'm I don't get to work on the show anymore. So as a producer, it keeps me involved in the creative. And honestly, so much of creating a show is getting it to opening night, but I'm having a blast now working on, keeping the show moving and connecting with audiences and seeing how it's growing and building connections with people that have seen it. And so, so I mean, I think the dynamic obviously changed when we grew our producing team, and a lot of it was just, Nick and I had such a vision for what the show was and how to pitch it and what kind of production we wanted, but having Sue and Larry coming in with their knowledge and expertise and their network and their connections and their relationships and their incredible pitching skills and just their entire wealth of skills and resources and everything has just leveled up the work that we're doing. And it's also allowed Nick and I to kind of find our sections of producing that we really excel in, and like for me, being in kind of the marketing, social media, audience building side of the producing team, because obviously when you're a producer, you're kind of overseeing everything. That's fun for me, because that's the side of this that I really enjoy. And so it's kind of giving, I think we've all sort of found our corners of what needs to get done for the producing team. And obviously we're involved in everything and we're talking about everything, but it does allow for us to kind of, when we meet, to say, hey, here's what's going on in my corner of this, and then talk, discuss, disperse. So, and it's really
so I want to jump in for a second. I want to clarify for everybody out there and on the podcast and YouTube and in the room. It doesn't always happen that the self-producer becomes an ideal person for the producers to actually want to work with going forward. We didn't quite get to this signing of we didn't get to the marriage yet. We've talked a lot about the dating and the engagement party, but we haven't gotten to the marriage yet. We haven't in the chronology of this. We got so far as to have you and Nick scope out the theater, 46th Street Theater, and decide that was the place where you wanted to have your show. And we're about to talk about the wedding. We're about to talk about the wedding of the producers and the self-producers. And I also want to say to everybody, we've been talking about this since the beginning, how important it is for you to understand the business. One of the reasons why it's not always fun for a producer to work with somebody who's been self-producing is because they don't understand the business necessarily. They don't understand what the producer's needs are, but you guys seem to have a really good grasp of what the realities are in theater, which Sue was saying has made her and Larry's lives very, very much easier. So jump in, whoever wants to talk about how you got to the option part. When did you get to the option or signing the contract or whatever you did?
I will tell you, these guys have been a dream to work with. Like really, Sue and we're having a great time, for one thing. I feel like we're also really sort of jamming into our roles now. You know, like Jonathan just said, obviously he wrote the thing, and it's how this came out of this guy's head, I'll never know. But it's so smart.
It's a little scary, isn't it?
It's a little scary.
Yeah.
And but he's also like really, he mentioned finding his lane with the marketing and like really working with that marketing team so well. And Nick, Sue and I remember saying, Sue and I had said to Nick, we're like, Nick, rehearsals are about to start. You need to shift gears now. Cause he was very much in like his producing head, and he shifted gears like that. And he went right into rehearsal, and, and Sue and I kind of like took over a bit more with all the producing stuff. So, but the day that Nick and Jonathan, I think, was on Zoom, the day that he was coming to our office to sort of like really to put the nail, I say the nail in the coffin, that's not the right analogy, but, seal the deal. Sue and I literally, we were talking beforehand, and Sue's like, what are we going to do? And I was like, I don't think I was when they said this, I was like, I don't think we should do this, but let's hear what he has to say. Right. And it was really in that conversation that it just happened. And Sue and I know each other so well. It's not like she blindsided me, and I was like, oh, you said yes. It wasn't that. It was like, we were totally, our brains were one brain. Like we were in the right wavelength. And Sue said, we want to do this. And in my head, I was like, yeah, we do. Even though before the meeting, we were like, we're probably not gonna. But there was definitely an opening. And that's when it all started to happen. And then you guys, it was fast and furious because like you said, they'd gotten theater already. Like the dates were set. It was going to happen. We had to raise money. We're like, we got to start on this thing now. So that was immediately that's how Sue, and we love this part. That's where Sue and I just went to work. And we started calling like the people that we love, that, some of our investor crew that we love, we want them to be a part of it. And some of the co-producers that we love. And, we turned it to them, and the ones that wanted to do it said yes. And we got a lot of yeses right away. It was pretty exciting. It was pretty quick.
I'm going to venture a truism, and you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong. Every production of every show is a whole different business model. There's no one way to do this. I know that a lot of us wish there were. There's no book on how to make this happen, because it sounds like this situation is a completely unique situation. It's not going to happen like this all the time. Can you contrast this a little bit with your situation when you fell in love with and produced the other Josh Cohen?
Oh. I'm going to take this one, Larry, because I'm older than you are. Josh Cohen, was a result of the summer of '98 when Steve Rosen and I lived together at Surflight Theater for a summer. And at the end of the summer, I said, I'm the president of your fan club now and forever. And he said, same. And then 20 years later, he wrote a show. So I think you all on this call know this because you're truists, but everything is about relationships, everything. We came on board. So Stranger Things is a brilliant show. And we came on board Stranger Things because of Nick and Jonathan. So I would say the only contrast here, the marked difference, is that Stranger Things is a known quantity. The moment that I say to someone Stranger Things, either I get no reaction or I get someone starting to dance up and down and be like, I'm obsessed with that show. So all of a sudden we have built-in audience. So it's a lot easier for us now that the show is up and running and it's a hit and it's this tremendous experience where we have audience coming back again and again. We have tremendous licensing interest, particularly from Asia right now. We're going to have a wonderful bidding war in terms of licensing the title. We have never experienced that before. And we think that this is, I can only imagine what will happen when season 5 comes out next year. So that will coincide with our tour that El Glenn is running with us. So we have a tremendous amount of momentum from what we're based on is a parody musical, and we've never had that kind of built-in passion and enthusiasm. It's a lot less work, and it's kind of wonderful in that respect.
Congratulations on finding Nirvana.
Oh no, there's still work to be done. Don't worry. We don't rest until every seat is filled.
Oh, good. Owen, I just want to.
It's an interesting. I'm sorry, Bob. I just want to add on to that. It's been interesting. You know, off Broadway, it takes a while to get your groove. You're not like the seats aren't 100% full right out of the gate because there's no big, huge advertising budget building up to opening. Like, say, you know, Almost Famous right now. That's like, you know, that show's been coming for a long time. Or any of the big shows, like they really can build up. We didn't have that luxury. All we had was like, it ran downtown last year. Stranger Things is wildly popular. And we're going to do this show. It's going to happen. Okay, we've got 5 weeks to get to the first preview. How are we going to get butts and seats that first preview?
I forgot. I muted myself so that I wouldn't disturb you. So how did you get those butts and seats?
Oh boy. Well,
you already gave us a hint.
People in the theater. No,
you already gave us a hint. You said that you feel this is a show that is marketable. Like when we do the speed date, we try to train the writers to look at their shows from other than an artist's point of view, and to try to feel what is promotable, what is marketable about their show. And this one, it sort of like screams out at you in the title, "Hey, this is how you market me."
Yeah, what we did initially is we all agreed, the four of us agreed that there was mostly going to be digital awareness because our audience is looking a lot at their phones. So it was a lot of targeted marketing in that respect. Then we had, this wonderful Demogorgon hat that some of our staff would put on and wear a Stranger Things t-shirt and be marching around Times Square. We're very fortunate in that Playhouse 46 is right next to Duffy Square. It's right next to the TKTS booth. So if somebody wants to see a show and they're 2 minutes away from curtain, Stranger Things can be your show.
Well, that works well, doesn't it? Are there any, Owen, just let me know, are there any questions?
Yeah, there's a question from Rob.
Okay.
Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
All right.
Of course.
The question is, did the producing team engage the season 1 showrunner or executive producer of Stranger Things? If so, how did it go?
Or a broader question is, have you been able to hook into the original, into Stranger Things in any way that has been useful?
The original Stranger Things as in the television show, or do you mean the original production downtown?
No, I think he means Stranger Things, the television show, because he's talking about a showrunner, so that's a TV reference.
Yeah. If you want to call them, tell them to come see it. I think they will laugh their pants off. It is such a love letter.
This gets into actually a deeper question, which is the question of parody and what is allowed and what is not allowed. Do any of you know? Well, Lee Felch, your attorney, is here, so he can talk about that actually.
I'll just tell you guys, you can even see it on my t-shirt. Everywhere we go, we're not Stranger Things, we're Stranger Things, the parody musical. That is in all of our written media. So we sing it loud and sing it proud. We are not authorized by Netflix. We are a love letter to Netflix. And Lee, if you want to chime in, we are protected by parody law.
Yeah, Lee, would you explain that to everyone? Because I'm sure that's a question on many people's minds.
There's nothing more I enjoy than talking about parody on a Friday afternoon. Parody is a very tricky intellectual property area in terms of fair use of someone else's copyrighted material. And parody really has to be making a sort of commentary and a transformation of the underlying property. So parodies actually technically don't have to be funny. Fortunately, Stranger Things is incredibly funny, so no danger of that. But parody can just have to make some sort of social commentary on something and transform it. And of course, there have been lots of different parody shows throughout the years. There's Puffs, right, which is a Harry Potter parody. There was Silence, the musical, which was a parody of Silence of the Lambs. So it's
however, Lee, there was one Three's Company parody musical that actually got stopped. Do you know about that by any chance?
I don't know. And in fact, just because you might be protected by parody doesn't mean that someone doesn't come after you. And so unfortunately, just like any lawsuit, it can be the person with lots of money being the bully trying to get the project off the block. Fortunately, knock on wood, that hasn't happened here. And we feel pretty secure that we're in good shape.
Oh, Tracy's correcting me saying it was Brady Bunch, but it actually happened with the Three's Company thing as well. So Brady Bunch parody musical was actually also got a cease and desist. So
we hope to get big enough that Netflix comes after us, quite frankly. Look,
go.
we're certainly on their radar, guys. Like, in fact, I know for a fact that we are. But we haven't heard anything from them. They're not coming after us. And again, we're so clearly parody and such a love letter to the show that we hope they're going to come in and see us and maybe offer some crazy deal. Who knows?
I'll jump in too. So from the social media side, it's actually quite funny. Well, actually, let me say two things. So in terms of parody, so the element that the producing team realized that we needed to deal with on the parody side is not just how do we, is the script a parody, but how is our entire marketing, the entire audience experience also part of the parody? So like, we're not selling Stranger Things branded things as merch. We're not doing, like, there was a Stranger Things experience in Brooklyn where you could take photos in front of the letter wall on the couch. And it's like, we're not recreating the set of Stranger Things so you feel like you're having a Stranger Things experience. We could have a parody, but still get shut down or whatever, because we're literally trying to recreate the Stranger Things experience. And that's not what we are. Now, the other part of this that's funny is that we're also dealing with that in the social media side of our audiences sometimes see clips of our show and think, oh, a Stranger Things musical, I don't want that. Who asked for that? And then once they realize, oh, it's a parody, they're like, oh, this is funny. Oh, I want to see this. This is interesting. And so we're shifting a lot of our video content and photo content to really emphasize this is a funny show. This is a comedy. This is a good time. Stranger Things is a serious, dark TV show. And we're something very different. And so it's actually really a fun challenge for us to be able to, yes, we have the Stranger Things brand that it's recognizable, but we also have the challenge of how do we get over the hump of like, this is not what you think it is. This is something actually like really unique that also happens to still operate as a love letter to the thing that you love. So it's been a very interesting learning curve on that, but also really quite fun. So
I would ask a somewhat specific question. By the way, Suzanne Bachner found an article that says that Three's Company parody was cleared for future stagings. So they've gotten over that legal hump. So if they win, we can all win. I hope, I think. So of course, I've just interrupted my own thoughts. So what did I start to say to you? Oh, good Lord. Too tired.
If you there's another question from Leslie.
Yeah, okay, go for that, and I'll remember what I was going to ask you.
All right. From those of us who are fine with the producing part but not strong with promotion on social media, how do you find a Jonathan guru for that?
Any ideas? You basically ask around. I mean, Owen, I hate to tell you, but I'm hoping you're going to be our social media guru, because I'm gonna have a conversation with you about helping us with our social media.
You have to find somebody young, guys, when it comes to social media and all that. Like anybody that's in their late teens or 20s, like they didn't know life without social media, so just know it inside and out. That's your best bet. I mean, before you have money to pay, an actual agency that's going to do it, if you just want to get it done, like either, pro bono or on the low side, find a young person who just loves social media.
Any other, Owen, are there any questions in the chat?
Not that I've seen.
Oh, okay.
But if anyone has them, feel free to put them in the chat. And I
would say also in terms of just having someone who's running social media, it's also a question of just like knowing your brand and like what your show is and what your voice is too. Because I think with Stranger Things, I've been so heavily involved in part because as the writer, I feel very protective of it. And I am aware that a lot of people will or will not see the show, regardless of the quality of the show, will or will not go based on what they see in social media and in the general presence of it, and that goes all the way down to like the poster design and the key art and all of that too. So, I think a lot of times writers are very involved in that process too, because they know what the show is from the beginning. But anyway, so that's part of that is very important. So yeah.
So I'm going to move to something else, because you have two other productions of the show that are scheduled. One in London, I think it's London, but it's in UK, and the other one in Australia. So can you tell us about how you got those opportunities? Where did they come from?
I can chime in. I was going to say that you have to be a go-getter. We're given opportunities; they're rare, whether it's financial or just timing of things. But you have to just really put in the work and look for that opportunity every day. So even a year ago, when we were in the village, we had this development fund. We decided not to use all of it on the show, with my intention, and I don't know if we were all on that same page early on, of using the rest of the money for a cast album, because I said we found the best talent in the world because there was no other auditions happening, and we got the best cast because we were the only show employing. Let's capitalize on these voices and this talent and get this music down, and more importantly, out there. And that album, combined with, we won 7 Broadway World Awards, including Best Musical, launched us into the international markets without us doing much. They came to us. We did not pitch. Basically, London saw us in Broadway World, that we won these awards, and reached out to us through Instagram, digital marketing, to potentially license a production. And that was the beginning. We heard London, and then Melbourne came about a month later.
So they found you.
They found us. And
I mean, everybody's like jumping out of windows right now going, oh, the dream came true for somebody. Oh my God.
Well,
if only God, please.
To clarify, we did have multiple offers that we didn't take as well. Like we had
talk about that thought process.
Yeah, I mean, we had a couple of London offers. One, I mean, obviously, like the first one we got, we were like, oh my gosh, London, this is crazy, but we did our research on like what kind of production they want to do. I chatted with some friends I had out that are producers out there and got their feedback on this. And, I think our feeling was that if we're going to expand, we want to make sure that it's representing the brand that we're building in New York the best that it possibly can in those markets. And so when we got offered, a request from the Vaults in London, and we find out that their theater is like right under Waterloo Station in this incredible, like abandoned tube station with graffiti on the walls, and it's this whole vibe that's perfect for our show. We were like, this is an instant yes. It was the same like seating capacity as the Players Theater, and they wanted to run for a couple of months, and it was right after season 4 had come out. It was right around when we were doing New York. It just, everything like lined up perfectly. And even that still took some time. Like we wanted to make sure that they had the right team on board that really represented the show well, because we were opening New York and they're opening London, and we're obviously very involved in London, but not able to be boots on the ground in the way that we are in New York. So that was that.
Jonathan, can I ask you, do you have voices or something going on in the background where you are?
Sorry, I'm at a restaurant right now. So
okay, so we're hearing ambient noises. That's fine.
Yeah, sorry.
I was trying to mute the person that was happening to it. It suddenly occurred to me.
I think it's me.
I can't mute Jonathan because he's talking. So
yeah.
I want to ask a sensitive question. I think that you touched on this, and I may not have gotten this from the conversation. You're talking about an original cast album. Sue and Larry, when you were raising money for this property, for this show, did you include in your budget any kind of add-ons like the original cast album, or were people just investing in the Broadway?
It was already done. The album was done.
Oh, what was already
done? Incredible. I'm telling you, Nick.
Did that become a selling tool for you, like when you were trying to raise money?
Sure. I mean, it was, I think Stranger Sings, the familiarity was really the greatest tool. And the fact that we have a stable of investors who trust our judgment, which is really lovely. But some people did have the chance to listen to the music and loved it. I mean, the opening number, Welcome to Hawkins, you just want to put it on repeat play. It's so much fun. So
the more assets you have, the better, so having the cast album certainly helped. There was a video from the downtown production too that we used it sparingly because we don't want people to get that caught in their heads, because also this was going to be a very different production because it's in the round. But certainly we used all those assets, and we were set up well by these guys. to make it happen.
It's tricky. I mean, it's been tricky with people with other shows, not necessarily this one. Sometimes you don't want to make an original cast album early because you're going to wind up with an all-star cast or Broadway stars, and you're going to be doing the album again. I'm trying to remember the example that I'm thinking of, but it turns out that in the conversation I had with somebody about this, they found that they were able to make the other album, and it was in competition with the first one, but they were able to market both of the albums, and the people that were fans wanted both of them. But it is tricky. Just writers in the room, you have to think about that at least.
When Leah Michelle comes and wants to play 11, we'll do another cast album. But until then, there's no.
I heard that she was afraid to ask you. She was like really eager. I'll tell her not to be. I'll tell her to just reach out. Okay.
On the cast.
Patti LuPone's available. We're non-union, so yeah.
That's true. Do you want to be Joyce?
She'd be great as. Oh my God! First time I saw the show, my friend Blaine, that was with me, said, "Oh man, she's just like Patti LuPone."
That's great. Yeah.
So
I will say one thing on the cast album, Bob, that's fun is, I mean, we recorded it after last summer's production, and there's some new actors in our show now, and definitely some changes that have happened. I think we felt like, we did weigh, like, is it too soon to do a cast album? But I think we felt like, we learned a lot from last year's production. It was,
a really well-produced demo. A really well-produced demo is one thing, and that of course you have to do. But something that you're actually going to release commercially requires a lot more money and a lot more detail.
Yeah, and we felt like it was the right time to do it. Like, we felt like we developed the show enough to the point where we were like, I think this is the version that we want. And even, again, like, there's things that have changed in the show since then. There's a new song that we're trying to figure out if we're going to re-record. There's a puppet character now. But what's fun to me is that there's a lot of people who have like grown in our fan base that haven't seen our show yet, but love the cast album. And so when they come see it, they feel part of the action, because they're like we see comments on TikTok all the time where like on songs, and they're like, oh, they changed the lyrics. I love the new lyrics, And so there is kind of that exciting feeling of like people who have fallen in love with our cast album get to see the show and realize like, oh, I caught it before it took off and became this big thing, and now look how it's grown. And so that's actually been a surprisingly fun aspect of that.
We had an interesting conversation with Joe Hawkins about being more chill, which touched on a lot of this as well. That was another show that a lot of its success was due to social media or awareness, and a lot of it was due to the existing of the music as recordings, which got a lot of play on social media. So I hadn't thought about some of the parallels between that conversation and this. Very, very different conversations, but there were some things that you have in common. Owen, we now have a lot of questions, so be your charming self and ask them on behalf, or if you don't understand the question, you can ask the person who asked it whether they'd like to turn on their mic and ask the questions.
Excellent. Well, our first question is from RK Green. Do the guests think that the new productions need to leverage a branded product to be successful on Broadway and off?
It's easier. I think what you were saying earlier was it's easier, but it's not necessarily the only way to go, right?
You guys,
if it's good. We saw two shows this week that blew us away: Kimberly Akimbo and Wuthering Heights. And Wuthering Heights is based on something from 100 million years ago. But no, if the quality is good, then it can catch fire. Word of mouth can be the most powerful thing. We have a great title, it's true, but now what we have is a great show, and the show is what's sustaining people coming and coming back, not the title.
I'm kind of like overhearing this too. You hear a lot like, oh, another musical based on a movie. That's true. And some of them suck, but some of them are amazing. I always say, if it's good, it's good. It doesn't matter if it's based on a film, a book, original like Dear Evan Hansen. Like, it doesn't matter, right? If it's good, it's good. That's always like, I feel like people want to blame something, so they'll go to blaming like, oh, it's based on that or this. It's just to look for it to put blame somewhere.
Well, it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt to have something that's branded, but certainly there were many shows that basically what the question is, how do you market something that doesn't already have an existing brand that you can play off of? And that's basically a basic marketing question, and there are lots of answers to that, and it depends on the show.
I will answer that question from earlier shows that Larry and I produced that had no underlying IP. You figure out what themes in the show will resonate with which audiences, and then you make 12 million cold calls to every single organization where there's crossover.
Okay. Owen, continue.
All right, our next question is from Gregory. For Jonathan, what's next? Are you going to continue writing or stick to producing? Perhaps both? Congrats to all.
Yeah, great question. I actually am going to leave the theater industry and probably get in manufacturing or something. I think theater is I've done it, so check it off the list. No, no, I love producing and I love writing, so I'm not going to give up either of them. I think I'm going to do both in tandem. I have projects in the works as a writer that I'm developing and hoping to start rolling out once kind of Stranger Things calms down a little bit. I also love the producing side and have some stuff working as well. So it's I feel sort of like now that I kind of have this wider skill set, I'm excited about the opportunity to have multiple projects kind of going at different times. I feel like I'm sort of the type, as I think most artists are, just we get antsy doing the same thing for too long. That's why a lot of us don't have office jobs. Some of us do, and they're great too. But I think for me, I'm just excited to get to work on a lot of different things, and hopefully a lot of musical comedy, because that's like my world and I really enjoy. But I love the full gamut of what theater can be and experimenting. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
And just a reminder to the room, because Sue said it earlier, Jonathan has written other pieces other than Stranger Things. This happens to be the only parody musical that I know of that he wrote. He's written serious plays as well, right, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Have you done anything else that was a musical besides this?
This is my first musical. And it's just truly funny because the whole process of writing this thing was me singing into my iPhone whenever I got a burst of inspiration for like 6 to 8 months. And again, I mean, I think you guys know the history of this. It started as sorry about that. It started as a 54 Below concert, and truly just was kind of like, it's going to be a one-night thing, and it's just a concert, and it's Halloween. It doesn't have to be anything amazing. And then as I was writing it, I was like, no, this can be good, and it just became something that I had no intentions of being a musical theater writer, and it just kind of happened as I realized that my lifetime of being in the theater and being around music and playing instruments and whatever kind of well prepared me for this. So yeah.
And Nick, a similar question to you. What are your plans from here?
Yeah, I think we're all balancing the multi-hyphenates we love so much, and I just love the storytelling, the impact stories can have in the community we're building. And my goal is to just continue more of that in any capacity. I love directing. I love having visions for works and bringing them to life, with family, with community. But I'm also really enjoying the producing aspect of this. We are so lucky to work with our mentors, Sue and Larry, as co-lead producers. Normally you take class with these people, and I did, to learn, but we're learning real time, day to day with them by our sides. And it's been, I like talking to people. I love the business side. I love finding money and sharing my passion. I think a lot of that is producing as well. So, I'm not sure. I'm keeping doors open for all capacities, but thank you so much for having us today.
If you guys have to leave, let me know, because I have a question. There are many more questions, but I do have to dart.
I will
say too.
I want to thank everyone. I want to thank you, Bob, for having us. I'm seeing an off-Broadway show at Roundabout today, so I have to make my way with Linda Lavin. I don't know what it's called, but yes, I just thank you, everyone. I'm here for any direct questions if you want to email me, and just Bob, thank you for allowing us to kind of reflect through this process. It's if you have a dream, you got to run for it. I know it's very abstract, but it's preparation meeting opportunity, and we keep running. It's been a dream on this.
Well, thanks, Nick.
I want to
Jonathan, Larry, and Sue. Do you have to go also, or can we take there's a couple more questions?
About 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I got dash too.
Bob, I want to add on to just as Nick's leaving here. A lot of the joy of working on this as a writer has been working with Nick on this. Nick has been, a director since the beginning, but he's also been very much a collaborator on this. And, I've been sending him drafts over the years, and we've been talking through moments and experimenting and playing with things in the room. And he's, allowed me as the writer to kind of contribute thoughts when we're crafting the show together. And so if you are like a writer, like, I cannot tell you, just like the spirit of collaboration is like the best part of theater. And working with Nick and working with Ashley, our choreographer, and Michael, our orchestrator, it really, like the show. I mean, I wrote the words, but it feels like it is a co-creation between all these, my 4 creative team members. And then Sue and Larry coming on as producing team. I mean, it's just like, it is my favorite part of this is getting to create it with.
I do want to jump in and clarify something, because this is something that I was trying to ask before, but I haven't been able to. I want to clarify for everybody that this was done non-equity. There were no equity or unions involved in this, and no pets were hurt in making it either. Can you talk briefly about how different this would be if you had made a choice up front to do equity? And in response to Katrine's question, if you did a video at the downtown production, was it completely non-union? The answer is yes, because it wouldn't have been possible if it had been equity, as far as I know, or it would have been expensive. It would have been very, very, very costly.
Yeah, it made sense to be non-union because the ages of the characters, we were really fortunate to get age-appropriate actors who just completed conservatory training. So most of the characters, many of the characters in Stranger Things are teenagers. So we got the best quality actors, union or non-union. But the fact that it is non-union, it allows us to be a little bit more flexible with things we can bring to the table. When you come to see the show, it is designed by a Broadway set designer. The set design is a dream. So we have an incredible team that put the show together that you wouldn't think to ask if you came to see it, is this union or is this non-union? Because the production values are remarkably high. And one thing that we do that we're not required to do is we have our audience at this time masked, because our cast is so close to them. We have audience on all 4 sides. And there's no union telling us that we need to do that. We just want to make sure to keep everybody safe.
The one other thing I want to add before ending today, because I know you guys have to leave, we've talked about putting together a theater party, a true theater party. So I want to put this out to the room. Please contact me if you want us to get. I don't know whether you said this or not, but I'm going to try to negotiate a discounted amount for true members if possible. And we could have a little party and we can have a conversation with Jonathan, Larry, and Sue after the show. Is that right? Am I speaking out of turn?
We will have the best time. Luckily for us, Joe Allen is next door to the theater, and Nick was the world's greatest bartender there. So we've got all sorts of possibilities of ways to hang out.
Maybe that's where I know him from. Okay, so that's to the room. I want you to know that we would like to put together a theater party, and I need to know your interests. So email me and let me know, or I'm going to probably send an email out to everybody else, and we'll find a date that works for everybody. I think that other than that, we will have a discount available to all of the True community. So if you want to see it on your own, but I think it would be fun, and it would be nice if we just could all get together and see the show together. I would like that. So I'm going to thank you guys. Jonathan, thanks for popping in, and Larry and Sue, always a pleasure to see you guys. Nice seeing you in person today, Larry, at the National Alliance of Musical Theaters. And I'm going to just say a few words to everybody out there. I want to thank you all for joining us. I want everybody in YouTube and podcast land to know that you can be part of the room. We would love to have you. So if you want to get the Zoom link and join us on a Friday, email me at TRU online. No. What is my email address? TRUNLTD. I can't remember my address. TRUNLTD@AOL.com. That's TRUNLTD@AOL.com. And we'll put you on the Zoom list, and we'll invite you week after week. Next week, we have Kalia Davis from Bay Street Children's Theater Company out there, and we have Mara McEwen from Treehouse Shakers. They're going to talk about the importance of youth theater. So anybody who's has a children's piece or a piece for young audiences or a piece for family audiences, we'll probably talk about the differences, and we'll also talk about the market in general, and we'll talk about efforts that have been made, that are being made right now to bring more diversity even into youth theater. We're making those efforts commercially on Broadway and off-Broadway and regionally, and it's also happening in theater for young artists, young audiences, TYA. So please join us and consider supporting us if you can. We do this for the community, and we have an absolute free button, so you can always click the free button and come join us for free. But it's really supposed to be pay what you can. So maybe you can pay something and keep us going as we're heading into live performance, and as we're going to be doing things live a little bit more. We're going to have increased exponentially increased expenses. It's going to be a lot more expensive for us. So we'll need your support. And I'm not going to stop doing things virtually. We're going to keep doing the True Community Gathering here so that everybody outside of New York can be part of this. And we welcome you, and we love having you here. And that's it. Hope you'll join us next week, and the week after, and the week after, and the week after. Signing off. Thanks, everyone. Bye.